Hello, everyone, and welcome to Admissions and Aid, How to Apply and Pay for College. I am going to be your host. My name is Stephanie Harkey-Gibbs, and you'll learn a little bit more about me more into the presentation. So, why are we here? Well, one of the reasons is college is expensive, and most people need help with paying for it. Some people are here because they don't have the time because this process is really involved, especially if you want to do it right. And this is my first kid. I don't know what to do, and you don't want to make any mistakes. And then there's families that will say, I want to make sure that my kid gets into a good college. It's so competitive now. How can I get that strategic edge? And then lots of families always ask, where can I find scholarships to help pay for college? So we will talk about all of these things, and we're going to start with today's college costs. We're going to look at standardized tests, a thought on how to select a college, how do colleges select students, the financial aid process, how are you going to pay for this education, and the importance of planning. So keep in mind the information that I'm going to present is general in nature, and considering everyone's personal financial situation can be very complex and very different, I will offer a free aid strategy call to those who attend, where we will take 30 minutes of one-on-one time to review your specific and individual situation. And then we will further discuss details of this consultation later in the workshop. So here we go. College is expensive. I know you guys should know this by now, but I'm going to share with you how expensive it is. So we have three categories of colleges. The first one is public universities. Examples of this would be like Poly, Pomona, any of the Cal State schools, Cal State Fullerton, Cal State Long Beach, Arizona State, Utah State, any of those types of state schools. And the average cost of a public university is $30,990 per year. And then we have the next category, which is private universities. Colby is an example of a private university. Other examples may include University of La Verne, Occidental, for example, and the average cost would be $65,470 per year. And then we have elite private universities. So some examples of this would be the Claremont colleges at Pomona, Pitzer, Claremont McKenna, USC, Stanford, the Ivy League schools. Those are all examples of elite private universities. And their cost could be $95,670 per year. So now that we know the average cost across the country for these different types of college systems, public, private, and elite private, we need to do our homework. So let's look at some local costs. So I live in California. So I've gathered some local colleges in my area, and I put UCLA at the top because they get the most applications in the entire nation. And their cost is $45,353. Then there's Cal State Fullerton, which is my alma mater. It's $36,148. Caltech, $93,912. USC, $103,162. Oh my gosh, that is so expensive. And then Pepperdine, $98,720. Biola University, $65,314. Loyola Marymount, $99,289. And then Stanford, $97,545. And our West Coast Ivy, Harvey Mudd, $104,512. And then another private college, Chapman, $97,176. So I just want you to know these are not 4-year costs. These are annual costs. And lots of parents, when they see these numbers, are like, wow, these are so expensive. They're so incredibly high. Now, when you're looking at these, what I call COA or cost of attendance, you want to make sure that the number or the sticker price takes into consideration 5 areas. The first is tuition and fees. Then there's housing and food. Then there's transportation, books and supplies, and personal expenses. So we need to have all of those items included in that sticker price. And that way, when you're comparing colleges to one another, you're comparing apples to apples and not apples to oranges. One more thing I want you to notice or take heed of, and that is approximately 49% of students graduate in 4 years. And less than 60% of students graduate in 6 years. So if half the students graduate in 4, that means the other half do not. And so when you're planning your college, you may be thinking about 4-year college, and it may take an additional year. It may take 5 years or it may take 6 years. So please plan accordingly and make sure you have enough money, because as you can see, it's super expensive. One of the things that is contributing to these high costs is college tuition inflation. And here we have a chart that covers from 2000 to 2024. And it basically breaks down the consumer price index. That's the cost of goods and services. And at the bottom of the chart is apparel or clothing. And then you have recreation, education and communication. Transportation is the green line. Food and beverage is the purple line. Housing is the turquoise line. And then other goods and services, medical care is this purple line right here. And guess what's at the top? Look at this, college tuition and fees. Over 180% increase since May of 2024. So you need to look at this, and college tuition is increasing more than any of these other categories. It's becoming an inflation nightmare. Let's also look at the federal government's assets, because this is really important. Now, if we look at this pie chart here, we can see this large purple area right here, which is student loans, is 34% of the pie here. So roughly a little more than a third. And what you want to take from this is that the federal government's assets, a third of them come from student loan debt. The government wants you to take out money, student loans, to pay for college. And as long as families are taking money out, the colleges can increase the amount of money that they charge families, because they know that you have an avenue to pay for your college through student loan debt. And it's big business, as you can see. So let's see who pays what. Now, I know most of you guys think of college as a place that educates our students, but I want you to think of it and look at it through a different lens. We want to look at it as a business, because college is a business. It just happens to be in the business of educating students. And like any business, there are enrollment managers. Colleges hire them to make sure that they have enough money to run their institutions. And here is a chart that enrollment managers use to decide who is going to pay what. So let's take a look at it. So down here is 0. This is the low socioeconomic family. This is their ability to pay. At the top is the high socioeconomic family. And then as we go across, we have the willingness to pay, and we have average and poor students. And then at the top, we have the high socioeconomic students here. So let me show you what enrollment managers do. So if your student is exceptionally gifted and they're low socioeconomic, they are more likely to get scholarships from the college. And as you go up the chart, high socioeconomic and very gifted students, colleges give them tuition discounts. And then if you move to the right on the chart, and the more average or poor the student is, colleges, what they do is they admit those students knowing that the student could never afford it, because remember, they're low socioeconomic, and it's really a form of denial. And then if you have average poor students and they are high socioeconomic, they are going to be full pay candidates. So they're going to pay that full tuition or full sticker price that I showed you earlier. So where are you on this continuum? Most students actually fall in the middle, but what are you going to pay? Are you going to pay retail, or are you going to pay wholesale? Let's talk about standardized testing. There are two main college testing platforms. One of them is the ACT and the other is the SAT. These are college admissions tests, and you can determine whether or not your college accepts these tests by going to fairtest.org or going directly to the college website and asking about their testing policy. So it's very simple. You just type in the college name in a Google search and you write testing policy afterwards, and then you will get the list of their testing policy for that particular institution. And so years ago, a lot of colleges started to go test blind, which means they did not accept the ACT or the SAT any longer. Now the pendulum is moving to the other side, and more colleges are now deciding that the students that enrolled into their course colleges under the test blind policy are not being as successful, or they may not demonstrate the skills that they need in order to be successful on their campuses. And so universities, systems like the UC system is getting pressure for some of its professors, particularly in the STEM area, wanting to bring back the SAT and the ACT. And some of the Ivy Leagues have already brought back the standardized testing. So something to think about when you're selecting your colleges. So it's either the test is going to be required, it's going to be optional, or the colleges may be test blind and not want a test score at all. So let's look at selecting the right university. I have a couple of things on the screen, areas that you may want to consider. I'm not going to go over all of them, but you can take a screenshot if you would like. But you want to look at different ways and criteria or factors in selecting the right university, like the academic program, the location, the size, the job placement. Because remember, the goal of going to college is to come back with a job on the other side. And many families overlook this and they don't spend enough time in the job placement area. You may also be interested in the student-faculty ratio. Tutoring may be important for some families. What's the alcohol-drug policy? Diversity, what's the college demographic mix? Is my student going to feel comfortable there culturally? What type of food is on campus? This is really important for the students. They want to make sure they have a good selection of food. Financial aid. Is there going to be any scholarship money, any merit aid? Okay, so the list can be as long as you want, but I want you to start thinking about selecting your university based on real factors that impact your student and your family. So, contrary to the list that I just showed you, I want to share with you how students and parents actually pick colleges. We'll start with the student first. So they pick colleges based on my boyfriend or my girlfriend's going there, followed by all of my friends are going there. Location, location, location. My dorm on the beach is absolutely amazing. It's a party school, but don't tell my dad. This is actually what happened to me. I wanted to go to San Diego State, but my uncle told my dad it was a party school, and I ended up at Cal State Fullerton instead. It's amazing sports teams. Kids love to be around the sports team, the energy, the popularity of a great football team or basketball team just kind of makes their experience amazing, and many, many other reasons. All right, so that's our student. Let's look at our parents. Money, followed by money, followed by the quality of education. I went there, so you should go there too. And here's my mom's. Any school within a 2 hours drive. And prestige. That USC bumper sticker is going to look amazing on the back of my Range Rover. All right. We don't want to pick prestige as a means or a reason to go to a college. But what are the universities looking for? What do they want? So when they evaluate students, they're looking at their academic record. This is their transcript, the types of classes that they took. IB, AP, dual enrollment, honors courses. Is it a strong academic record? What's their GPA? So they're looking at that. They're looking at the students' extracurricular activities. How do they spend their time outside of school? Letters of recommendation from core teachers and the counselor. They're looking at essays that bring the applicant to life. And many students fail to really utilize this area for this purpose. And that's a missed opportunity. Strong SAT and ACT scores at the colleges that require the scores or are optional. Demonstrated interest. Is a student following the college on social media? Complete college or campus tours. So those are demonstrated interests. And then this is one area, institutional priorities, that I typically have to explain to parents when they are upset that their student didn't actually get into the university, but they also discover that a student with a lower GPA got into the university. And they were just wondering, why did that happen? How could this be? And basically, the colleges have institutional priorities, things that they want from their student body. And it varies from year to year. One year, it could be ethnicity. The next year, it can be first-generation students. Another year, it could be the major. It could be that they're offering a new major and they need to fill those seats. Or it could be that the major didn't have enough students because most of them graduated and they want to replace those seats. The student could be a really good athlete, or they may have a special skill, talent, or ability that the college is looking for. And if they meet these institutional priorities, they're going to take a seat away from possibly a more or stronger candidate. But you need to know this kind of going into it. So they do have institutional priorities, and they will take precedent over other students. So now that we have some groundwork, I want you to think about being an educated consumer. I want you to take a top-down approach. I want you to think of college and selecting colleges through a large funnel. And what you need to know that there's over 3,000 colleges out there, many of which students don't even know the names of. And because you don't know the name of it, doesn't mean that it's not a good college. You just have to do some research and find out if it's a good match for you. So you want to apply broadly. And so you want to take many colleges, you want to put them in the top of the funnel, and then you want to narrow them down, and then you want to apply to 6 to 12 colleges. And you want them to fall into these 3 categories: safety, target, and reach. So let me briefly explain those. Safety is where your student is in the top 25% of the applicant pool. And you can get this data on the college's website. You want to find out what were the SAT scores or the GPA of the previous class that got admitted. And then you want to compare your grades and test scores to see if you're in the top 25% of last year's applicant pool. And then there's a target. So this is where you're right in the middle of the students' range of test scores and grade point average. And then a reach means you'll be in the bottom 25% of the applicant pool. All right. And how many colleges is in each category? Safety, you should have at least 2 to 3. Target should have the bulk of your colleges, 4 to 5. And reach, maybe 1 or 2 reach schools. Okay. If you apply kind of broadly through these categories, this is the best way to ensure that the college will want your student. Because if you're applying to target schools, that is your best chance to get in. And then if you have a couple of safeties, that is the best chance to get in as well. But I want to caution you, every college on your list should be a school that you will want to attend. So even if you didn't get into all the schools and you got into your safety, it should be a school that you still want to attend. So when we look at the high cost of college, we want to know, how will you pay for it? So you can do it one of 2 ways. You can use your money from your savings, from your job, or money that you have to borrow from the bank, or money that's in your bank account, or you can use other people's money through tax scholarships and strategies, gift aid that you receive from someone else. It can be grants, scholarships. Those are all other people's money that you can leverage. So I always like to use other people's money when I'm paying for things, as long as I can. Here's another strategy for reducing your tuition bill. It's actually 4 different strategies. So if your student's taking AP and they're getting good results on the exams, which is a 3 or higher, at many colleges, the student can earn college credit. And that means they'll have to take less required general education courses. The same applies for dual enrollment as well. So high school students taking college courses concurrently, they will also earn transferable credit, reducing the number of undergraduate courses as well. But these courses are limited to the private colleges, and many elite private colleges don't accept the dual enrollment. But in their state system, like for example, California, Cal State and UC's, they accept all dual enrollment credits as long as the student has passed the class with a C or better. We also want to take advantage of the in-state tuition. So when you were looking at the cost of college, you will notice that the state schools were less expensive. So you may want to make sure you're taking advantage of the in-state tuition. And also keep in mind that if your student is thinking about going to another state school in another state, like Washington State, Utah State, New Mexico State, they will have to pay out-of-state tuition fees on top of the in-state tuition fees. So it can be much more expensive going to a public school outside of the state. However, there are some agreements where they help to reduce those costs through that are offered regionally in different areas. And then there are CLAP exams. This is where students can take college level examinations and also receive college credit. You will need to go to the website for the CLEP exams and find out which colleges accept this credit. And these subjects are generally offered in English, humanities, math, sciences, and history. And the students can also earn general education credit. All right, so this is reducing your tuition bill. And then students, you need to be aware that there's federal student aid available to you. And last year, or in the year 24-25, there was over $200 billion available to students. And I want to bring your attention to this graph again. And where you see the largest area, which is 33%, it is institutional grants. And when I'm working with families, I'm always focusing my attention on the largest area of the graph, which is the institutional money. That's the money from the college itself. And a grant is free money. So I focus my attention there is because I want to make sure when I mentioned safety schools and you're in the top 25%, those colleges are more likely to pay for your student. So you're going to get that institutional grant money. What I do find in my work with families is that they focus primarily on private and employer grants, which is private scholarships, which is 6% of the money. So you focus your attention on 6% of the pie, and I'm looking at the 33% area of the pie because I'm looking at the biggest chunk, and most families are looking at one of the smallest pieces of the pie, the scholarships. So just wanted to let you know this is what the total undergraduate aid looks like by source and type so that you can see where the money breaks down. So how do you apply for this aid, this federal aid? Well, one way is to do this, and it's the gateway to accessing all aid, is the FAFSA, which is the free application for federal student aid. And here's what the website looks like. It's available October 1st nationally. It is a free application. It takes in consideration of 1 year of financial data, and it's 2 years prior. So prior year, they're going to be using your prior year tax return. So if we're applying for financial aid in 2027, they're going to be looking at your 2025 IRS tax return to determine how much money you will receive in aid. Okay. And remember, it's a free application to apply to. There's also another financial aid form. It is called the CSS Profile, the College Scholarship Service application. It is mainly or primarily for private colleges, and these colleges have their own institutional forms as well. They may also ask for business farm supplements, divorce or separated agreements. This form takes into consideration 3 years of financial data. So they will look at last year's financial data, the current year's financial data, future year, or the next year of financial data. This is what the website looks like, the CSS profile. You can see it here. And the reason why they want to take in more consideration as you can see, they want really detailed information about your business or divorce or separated agreements, is that this is the college's money, and they want to make sure they know everything about you before they give you any of their money. So it's very much more detailed, and they ask a lot of detailed questions. Okay. So what are some factors that can influence your student aid index, which is the SAI? So we're looking, the FAFSA is looking at your income, savings, how much money you have in assets, your age, and the number of students who are in college. They're also looking at your family size, how many people in the family are supported by the income. They're also looking at your student and their income if they have a job. They're looking at how much money they have in savings, what do they have in assets, and whether or not they're dependent or independent. So these are the factors that the FAFSA takes into consideration when they're determining how much money you will have to pay for college. So let's take a little deeper dive into owner assets and income. So this is the assessment rates for a dependent student for 26-27. And if the student is the owner of any of those assets, then 20% of the asset is going to be considered for financial aid. And if the student has a job, 50% of that income should be available to pay for college. And what you need to know from this is that the student's income and assets are assessed more heavily than parent assets. So typically, if assets are owned by the student, you may want to see if you can transfer that asset to a parent-owned asset so that it can be assessed at a lower rate. And as you can see on this chart, it could be up to 5.64% for a parent asset who is the owner. And then also for their income, the income of the parent is the adjustable available income. So that's the adjusted tax rate, and it can be 22% to 47%. One more thing to take into consideration for the FAFSA is that the primary residence, the retirement plans, the life insurance, and any ABLE accounts are excluded. And also, this family-owned business and farms and fishing businesses are excluded where there are fewer than 100 full-time employees. So this was previously available to families for many years. It went away for a couple of years, probably the last 2 or 3 years, and now it's back. So this is a really good benefit for business owners. So let's look at the power of this one form. So if we look at family A on the screen, they have an income of $90,000. They have college savings of $25,000. They do have some savings of $35,000, and they have some other real estate, maybe some type of property that they own, some rental income of $50,000. And then the number of people in the family is 4. The number in school is 1. They have 1 student going to college. And then based on the information that they provide on the FAFSA application, the student aid index will be $18,000. So they're going to be expected to pay $18,000 based on their student aid index. If we take this same family with this same income, same college savings, other savings, other real estate investments or property, number in families 4, number in school is 1, but the student aid index is 10,000. How can this be that one family with the same financial makeup pays 18,000 and the other pays 10? Well, I can tell you it comes down to planning and knowing how to put information on these forms in the proper way. So let's take a little closer look at how colleges determine need-based aid eligibility. So remember we talked about the cost of attendance, and I had on the screen the different colleges and the sticker price. So that is the cost of attendance. And then we're going to subtract the student aid index from that, whatever that number may be. That is going to equal the need minus any resources. Resources are going to be scholarships or grants. And then that's going to equal a modified need, what the student needs in order to attend the college. So let's take the same formula and let's add some numbers to it. So the cost of attendance is $25,000. And based on the student aid index, the family would have to pay $10,000. So in order to attend this school, they still need $15,000. And they got a scholarship of $2,000. So we subtract the $2,000 from the $15,000, and that gives us a modified need of $13,000. So in this example, the student or family would have to pay $10,000 plus the modified need, which equals $23,000. So in this example, also, the student did not get a lot of their need met. They only got about $2,000 of the $15,000 met. So this family would pay $23,000 to attend this $25,000 school. So that's how the formula works. So let's look at a case study of the lesser school. So here's some more examples. We're going to look at College A, which the cost of attendance is going to be $25,000. We're going to take the same student aid index from the FAFSA. It's $10,000. One thing I want you to notice is that no matter what school your student attends, the student aid index from the FAFSA is going to be the same at every college. And then you're going to get a financial need, which is taking the cost of attendance, subtracting the student aid index number, and then that gives you how much money you need to attend this particular college. So in this example, 25 minus 10 is 15,000. So you need $15,000. Another thing I want you to take into consideration is that colleges don't always give you 100% of what you need. Each college varies on how much money they're going to offer you in need-based money, grants or scholarships. And so the average percent of need for this particular college A is 50%. So you need 15,000, they're only going to give you 50% of the 15,000 in grant aid, which is free money, which is good, which is $7,500, half of 15,000. So they're going to gap you, which means that they're not fully meeting your need and you're left with an additional gap of money. So your FAFSA student aid index number was 10,000, and they gapped you because they didn't give you any additional money. They gapped you $7,500. So your potential net cost to attend this $25,000 school is going to be $17,500. Okay, hope you're following these numbers. If you look at College B, we do it the same way. The school costs $35,000. We subtract what the FAFSA says that we have to pay. We have a financial need of $25,000. This school gives you 60% of what you need. So that means your estimated grant, 60% of $25,000 is $15,000. That means they still gapped you $10,000. And so the $10,000 from the FAFSA plus the $10,000 that they gapped you is going to show you that you owe the college $20,000. So it's going to cost you $20,000 to go to this $35,000 school. Okay. So a lot of times you don't pay the full sticker price because the college is going to give you some form of aid, remember, but they may not, depending on your student and where they fall on that enrollment management chart. Okay. College C, 55,000 minus 10,000. Your financial need is 45,000. This looks like a private school where they have lots of money in their endowment, and they're going to give this student or family 85% of what they need. And that comes out to be 38,250. There still may be a gap that you still need more money. But if we look at the $10,000 that the FAFSA told you you would have to pay, and we add that to the gap amount, your total cost to attend this college is $16,750 to attend a $55,000 schools. So sometimes just looking at the cost of attendance should not be a deterrent, because depending on how much free money the college makes available to you and where you fall in the enrollment management chart, you can get more money, and it could be that you pay less money to go to a more expensive school. So let's talk about the case study appeal. Now here's the original offer. The cost of attendance was $25,000. According to the FAFSA, the student aid index is $10,000. So that means the family needs $15,000 to help pay for this $25,000 school. Now, here's what the financial aid offer or award letter looked like. The university gave the student a grant of $2,000, which is free money. The student also received work study of $4,000. That's money that they have to pay back in the form of work. They received a direct subsidized student loan of $3,500, and subsidized means that the interest is paid by the government. And then the student also received a direct unsubsidized loan of $1,500, which means that the interest will be paid by the student, which gave them total aid of $11,000. Now, many families don't know that you can actually appeal award letters. And so in this case, the student and their family appealed for more aid. And this is what the offer looked like after the appeal. So the cost of attendance, $25,000, student aid index, $10,000, the need still $15,000, everything's the same here. So they got a university grant of $4,000, so $2,000 extra dollars here in the university grant. They got a scholar award of $2,000. The work study is the same, $4,000. Direct subsidized loan, $3,500. Direct unsubsidized loan, $1,500 is the same. And now their total aid is $15,000. So they got everything that they needed in the form of aid from the college. So that's 100% need met. So now the student and their family will have to pay $10,000 to attend this $25,000 school. So that's how you can appeal for more money. Let me show you another case study chart. So my student or client, Anaya, had a 4.2 GPA, a 33 ACT, parent income of $400,000 plus. Now this family, they put their foot down. They put their line in the sand and they say, you know what? We're very close to retirement. We are not going to pay more than $25,000 for your college education. Their only child. That was it. So they came up with this chart and they put every college that the student applied to. You can see different states. You see the tuition and fees, and you can see the merit aid. See the here. So this is how much money that the student received. And you can see some of the state schools do not offer very much money. And these are more private schools, so they offer more merit aid. And then this is what the tuition payment would look like. And then this family still has to pay for books. They have to pay for housing and food. And they kind of just figured out or calculated that for 9 months out of the year when the student is at college, they're going to have to pay $2,700 a month. And then they also would have to pay transportation costs. So when they looked at the net annual net costs, so remember the sticker price of the college, and then there's the net cost. So that's what the parents are going to have to come out of their pocket. So when they looked here, they saw that Babson College in Massachusetts was well within their budget, and that is where the student attended. So the finish line, what have we discovered today? We've looked at the high cost of college, the importance of selecting appropriate universities to make applications, how colleges select students, the power of the FAFSA form. Students and families will need to maximize aid received with expert advice. And it's more important now than ever, prepare well in advance for college. So my question to you is, what is your plan to pay for college? So remember, I told you I'll tell you a little bit about myself. So my name is Stephanie Harkey Gibbs. I attended Cal State Fullerton for my bachelor's degree in psychology. I went to or attended Cal Poly Pomona for my teaching credentials. And then I went to Cal State San Bernardino and got my master's degree in counseling, where I've been a high school counselor for over 25 years. And I taught for 10 years, elementary, middle school district. And while I was a counselor, I noticed lots of families needed help with paying for college. They actually filled out all the applications or the students filled out all the applications, and they allowed their student to fill out applications wherever they wanted to go without regard to how much the college costs. And when they received the financial aid award letter in March and April, they discovered that they could not afford it. And they would come into my office and ask me, can you come up with some scholarships to help me be able to afford to send my kid to this college? And unfortunately, my training to become a counselor did not include financial planning for families. So I took it upon myself to get some additional training and certifications with the California Department of Insurance. So I have my life insurance license in Series 6 and 63. And I started doing college financial planning to help families be able to afford it, and also to educate families like I'm doing with you about the entire process. And I just want to press upon you that you need to do both together, not in isolation. So not just applying for colleges, but also applying and having a plan to pay. These two things go hand in hand, and many times families do them in isolation. And so after I was able to help many families, my business grew. I started serving more families and educating more families. And just recently, I became a certified AI consultant. And so I use these skills to help with my business using apps for students to help with the application process as well. So there are 3 kinds of families that my company can help with. So we can help with families with total need. So these are families who will get financial aid wherever college that they go to, because they're going to have a 100% need. But they need to fill out the forms and applications accurately in order to maximize that free money. And then there's families with partial need. This is where the majority of families reside. And these are families that will get some aid depending on which schools that they apply to and how their assets and income is positioned. And then there's families with no need, almost like that family that made a $400,000. They really didn't need any money, but we still want to make sure that we go through the process and fill out the forms appropriately so that you can maximize the merit-based money. And a lot of times, even though you can afford to pay full price, in order to get the scholarships, you still need to fill out those financial aid forms. And then we want to pay in the most tax efficient way possible so that we can protect our retirement and any other financial goals that your family has. Now, I want to be clear, there are some students that we cannot help, and students with less than a 2.0 GPA, because many colleges don't admit students with lower than a 2.0, or maybe students who have not met the minimum college requirements. Like, I'm not a magician, I can't get you in the college if you haven't met the requirements. And then students with unrealistic college goals. So students who have low GPAs trying to get into the Ivy League schools. And I remember when I first started, there was the Ivy League colleges, some of them, what they said was, if you have low income, you can apply to our college and we'll give you a full ride. And basically, it was just a ploy for them to get more college applications so that they can appear more selective. And being more selective means you have more applications than you actually have spots. And when you do the math, the actual admit rate is very low. And colleges love low admit rates because it makes them more selective, and then they can charge you more money too. Go figure. And then, so this particular family, average student applying to the Ivy Leagues because a mom had heard the commercial, low income, go to Ivy League school, will pay for everything. And they're not going to pay for your student if you're not meeting the requirements. And I tried to press that upon them, but it went on deaf ears. But anyway, you have to have realistic college goals. And then students who will not be committed to the process. So if the student doesn't want to do the work that's involved, and like I said, it could take up to 100 hours to complete all these applications with the follow-up and the planning, the preparation. So students have to be committed to the process. All right, so now I would like you to ask yourself these questions. Do I want to avoid mistakes in the college application process? Do I want to know what my financial aid package might look like before I apply? That's what I would like you to know. Like, know how much it's going to cost you before you even fill out an application, spending that time doing the work. And of course, you don't want to make any mistakes. And do I need help with saving for and paying for the high cost of college? Now, I don't know many people that make $100,000 that are able to afford a college that costs $100,000. Like, how are you going to pay for just maintenance of your own household if the cost of the college is equivalent to the money that you make at your job? And I see this all the time. And then, are there any strategies that I can take advantage of now to increase the chances of my child enrolling in their dream school and making college more affordable for me as the parent? I mean, this is great to know now. And if you're a junior on this webinar, this is a perfect time for you to start strategizing now. So what are your options? The first one is you can let your accountant or financial planner do it for you. And so what you need to know about an accountant or a financial planner, their job is basically just filling out your tax returns, they're not really focused on college aid forms. And these are two totally different things. So I specialize in making sure your forms are turned in, maximizing your aid, and your accountant fills out your tax returns, making sure you get the most money back on your tax return, or at least that's what they should do. Or some of them just fill it out and they don't strategize. I like to strategize. So a financial planner helps you save, but they may not have a plan on how you pay for college. So they may say put your money in the 529, but do they have a strategy for how you're going to pay for college? Okay. And if you own a business, your accountant may also get involved in the business supplement forms. I do this completely differently. I'm very strategic. I always come up with a plan, okay, which is much different than your financial accountant. On the other side, you can do this on your own. You can spend time Googling all this information or chatting this information, and the colleges will love you for it because they know this is an overwhelming process and they know that you're going to make mistakes. And one of the things you need to know is that if you make a mistake in the process, they're not going to call you up and tell you that you made a mistake. You would be amazed at how many families in my time doing this made financial mistakes on their financial aid forms that were $60,000, $80,000 mistakes. And not one time did a college tell them that they made a mistake. They're not going to tell you that. They want you to pay as much as you can for college instead, the least amount possible. So I don't want you to do it on your own. That's why I created this course called Apply with Confidence. It's the college application course. And in this course, you're going to discover all of the things a senior should have done, and we're going to review those steps. If you're a junior, it's going to be a preview for you. We're going to talk a little more in detail about what colleges want. We're going to talk about the real cost of college, break it down, show you how to find the cost of a college that you want to attend. I'm going to share questions about campus visits with you, what questions you should ask, the application deadline, what are the different types. We're going to look at an application and break it down and talk about the information that needs to be included. We're going to dive into test prep, transcripts, and test scores. We're going to look at essays versus personal insight questions. These are two totally different animals, and you want to be able to know the difference between the two and then write appropriately to each type of essay question versus the personal insight questions. And then activities lists, we dive deep into the activities list. I show you exactly how to write it so that it stands out and makes an impression with the admissions officer. We'll talk about recommendations, who should be writing them, what to ask your recommenders to write on your behalf that is not regurgitating information that's already in your application. And then we'll summarize with application, submission, and how to complete updates to your application. And then much, much more in between. There are going to be some bonuses, like I'll have checklists for you. I had created some apps because remember, I'm a certified AI consultant. So I created these apps to assist you in the process. I will have worksheets for you. You'll get a copy of my book, Don't Pick the Wrong College or Career. And then I have a community group where the members can share ideas and information to help others grow. And I will also be part of the group. So you'll get my 25-year veteran high school and private counselor experience. I'll be able to answer any of your general questions. And then you get a free 30-minute aid strategy call to discuss any financial aid questions that you might have. Now, all of this is a $8,000 value. I typically charge my clients $8,000 for this type of service. And what I'm going to guarantee to you, if you want to take advantage of this, is that if you go through the entire course, you use all the tools, you do all the assignments, and if you do all the work and you don't walk away more confident and in control of both getting in and paying for college, and you email me within 30 days, and you do have to show me that you did the work, we will refund every penny. You can keep my book, you can keep the bonuses, you can still be part of the group. The only way that you can lose is to not do the work. Okay? I want you to be 100% satisfied with your experience. Now, you can get the course today for $497. That is a 94% savings. And the deadline to purchase at this price is going to be October 1st. I have 2 QR codes that you can use. You can do a full pay of the $497 before October 31st. The price is going to go up probably another $100 after October 1st. Or you can do 2 payments of $249 through the 2 pay. So you can choose full pay or 2 pay. I'll leave this on screen for you. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to me. I'll have a link that you can schedule your appointment or strategy call with me. And if you have any additional questions that you may have, please reach out to me. So just for participating in this webinar, you automatically get the 30-minute consultation with me to ask any questions that you want. So I will have the link down below. And I hope you take advantage of it. It's a wonderful course. Like I said, you're getting a veteran counselor who lives inside the school and outside, giving you advice about the best strategy to complete your applications and access to me to ask me any questions that you may have. Thank you for attending. And if you choose to go it alone, that's completely fine. But if you want some guidance step by step to make sure you don't make any errors or mistakes, I strongly recommend you get the course today for only $497.